Welcome to the latest episode of 305 Vox Populi. I'm Mayor Manny Sid, and we're right here in Town Hall in the Vox Populi studio. And with us today, we have Commissioner Ariel Fernandez. How you doing, Commissioner?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be here and see this great studio.
Well, we appreciate you coming on because you're part of Miami Lakes family, right? You do the Mindful Minute, right?
That's right.
Every single council meeting. Let me tell you, there's times, most of the times, like when the audience, it's like a packed house. And when I say, well, you have Commissioner Fernandez with the Mindful Minute, people look at it, brother, you'd be surprised the amount of people that are like, just shaking their head like, okay.
The interesting thing is I've been around town and somebody's walked up to me. I know you from Miami Lakes because I watched the council meetings and I've seen you speak there.
That is awesome.
They are paying attention.
That is
and,
awesome.
you know, I grew up in the area, so I have a lot of friends that have been here in Miami Lakes, and I spent many days here.
That's awesome. Oh, we both have something in common. We're both born in Hialeah Hospital.
Correct.
Which is
just a couple years ago.
Yeah, not too long ago. Not too long ago. Hey, but what's interesting, they no longer have a maternity ward, so now no longer are any kids being born in Hialeah Hospital. But you're a Hialeah kid, right? You were born in Hialeah. You lived on 49th Street, right? That was like the place to be, right? La 49. And you went to Champagnat Catholic.
Correct.
Which is no longer exists, right?
It no longer exists. It was around for about 52 or 53 years. But yeah, I grew up right behind the Zayas and the Consolidated Bank by the Denny's there on 48th Street. Amazing. I lived, and my grandparents were a block away. I spent many days on my bicycle riding down 49th Street, the old Potamkin,
yes.
Gus Machado Ford.
Yes.
What was the Cuban baby place that was there?
Oh, La Canatilla Cubana.
La Canatilla Cubana.
La Canatilla
I remember
Cubana.
when the Marlins won the World Series
awesome.
in '97. They had a huge sign outside wishing the Marlins good luck. And during the parade, people picked up that sign and were parading down 49th Street with that sign.
That is awesome. Yeah, you're right. La Canatilla doesn't exist anymore.
It does not.
Wow. But
La Ideal took
La
over.
Ideal.
But
there was a big
location.
building. There was a big building
location
back there.
It was actually just west of Gus Machado Ford.
Yeah, it was a pretty big building back there. Yeah.
And they had a big clown. That was their sign.
Yes. No, there was Hialeah's changed. 49th Street has changed
It has.
drastically. And shout out to Isabel Alonso. She's a great friend. I know she's a great friend of yours.
Mm-hmm.
The Alonso family did a great job. A lot of great people. My guest last week went to Champagnat as well. Juan Alfonso, right?
Oh, okay, yes.
Owns one of the largest engineering firms in the country, right? He's the president and the COO of that company, which is a big deal. But you're a kid who had to learn from the grind, right? So you have an advantage, right? Something that kids like me and you, when we were growing up, nothing was given to us, right? We had to earn. We weren't born, right? Our parents weren't wealthy or powerful. We had to earn everything that was given to us. And I think today, back then it was a struggle, right? You always realize, like for me, I didn't know. Even until when I got into the legislature, I didn't even know what wine was, right? Like I didn't even know like the different Cabernet or this. I didn't even, to me, Joe Stone Crab, my Joe Stone Crab was the Red Lobster on 49th Street, right? Straight up. I mean, I got good grades. That's where I went to. I got to order shrimp scampi, and that was it. So we grew up in a different world, which is very real. Miami's is a big city, but it's a small city. Everybody knows each other, but there's socioeconomic differences, right? Especially when we were kids. And you growing up and going through that process, working different levels of government, but running for office, your first time, came in 4th place. You got 11%. I mean, that night, how did that feel? Because, and we'll get into the story, but I think it's powerful to talk about that night because it's easy to talk about our wins, but nobody ever wants to talk about the adversity. So adversity is important. I think the kids appreciate hearing that because a lot of people shy away from it. You didn't win, right? You came in 4th place. You got 11%. What was the feeling when you saw the results?
So I think I was ready for those results. I was the first candidate into the race at that time. I started knocking on doors early. It was a grind. I knocked on close to 6,000 doors that election. I had a pedometer on. I had walked 495 miles knocking on doors. I could have walked from Miami to Atlanta. in just what I had done knocking door to door. But the former mayor's wife jumped in literally at the qualifying deadline. So until that point, I was leading in all the polls. And she jumped in with a platform that was identical to mine. So I knew at that point, I woke my wife up that night and I told her I just lost the election. But that didn't change my resolve. I continued working equally as hard all the way up to election day. And it was a recognition that even she gave me. On election day, we were standing at a poll together and she comes to me and she's like, the result may not be what you want it to be tonight, but I'll tell you, you were the MVP in this city in this election because of how hard you worked, and I want you to work with me. And a lot of people will take that loss and they'll say, you know what, I lost, I'm out of this, I'm not going to participate. I didn't. I remained involved in the city of Coral Gables, and I got more involved. I showed up to her swearing-in ceremony, which normally an opponent will never go. She invited me. She wanted to make sure I had a seat in that room, and I was there. And she called me up from the dais. She's like, I want you to take a picture with me up here because you were part of this as well. And she appointed me to the property advisory board in the city, important board which helps Coral Gables advise. Coral Gables isn't like other municipalities. We have a lot of property that we've owned for many years and we lease it out. We have different contracts. So the property advisory board advises the commission on how to manage these properties, what to do. And I got involved on moving Starbucks to Miracle Mile and the new location of Miracle Mile to help enhance Miracle Mile and a lot of different projects. And it didn't change who I was. On election night, I knew I had left it all out in the field. I had worked as hard as I could, and I lost, and did a video congratulating my opponent the next day and pledging to work together. I think that's what we're losing a lot nowadays in the political arena. Where
what's the name of your former opponent?
Jeanette Selesnik.
She passed away.
She passed away this past year, and actually I led the effort at City Hall to light City Hall in the color of lymphoma, which is what she passed away from. I led the way doing a proclamation recognizing her. I actually renamed a parking lot in the city after her name because she did a lot of great work for our city. And I worked well together with her in the time after she got elected to the commission.
You know, God bless her soul and what the example that she left. Because, right, what you just told me is very powerful. Nobody today does that in politics. You get your opponent who you just beat. You're like, no, I want you to be in my swearing in. I want you to be involved. I'm going to take a picture with you. I'm going to let people know how hard you work. I'm going to put you on an important committee. I go, how special is that? And that legacy, and kudos to you for recognizing her. I'm sure Don is still hurts. I'm sure it's a hole in his heart and his soul. But you know, hearing stories like that you share means a lot to him because that's incredibly powerful, Ariel. That does not happen. It doesn't. So it happened to me in Miami Lakes with Mary Collins, right? Mary Collins ended up becoming one of my biggest supporters. We named the building after her. I mean, when I ran for re-election as mayor, she was the first person to give me a check. So no, you're right. That era of we need more of that. We need more of that.
We really do. And we've seen how the dynamics have changed to a point where we're so politically charged that we vilify people because we disagree with them. And it's not conducive to a better society, to a better community. We don't realize that we're all part of the same town. We're all part of the same community. You know, my colleague, Commissioner Fernandez, calls it two croquetas of separation. And that's what we have with other people in this community. You know, we know other people, we're friends with other people. And when that discord comes down to a personal level where you're attacking each other personally, that has no place. You know, we're part of the same community.
No, 100%. But going from 11%, going through that adversity, having your opponent say, hey, who just won, hey, I want you to be involved, then running again. I mean, what made you run again? Because a lot of people, when they lose, especially their first election, they don't want to get involved anymore. Right. They're like, they get disillusioned. So I think kudos to, again, God bless her soul, kudos to Jeanette Selesnik for getting you involved, keeping you involved, because look where it's led to you running again. And talk to us about the process of you running again.
It was an 8-year process. There were 3 different elections that I still got involved, though. I endorsed candidates, I helped candidates, I knocked on doors for candidates. I stayed involved in the city. I didn't know that I wanted to pursue running for office again. And then this past election, the former vice mayor decided he wasn't going to seek re-election, and I started looking around at who I could support. And I really did not find a candidate who I thought could best represent the interests of residents. I felt that Coral Gables had started shifting in the direction it had been more pro-development, pro-developer, pro-special interest, and the voice of residents was kind of not being heard. So I said, the only person I'm going to be able to hold accountable is myself. So I said, I think it's time for me to run again. And it was a tough decision, a tough family decision. You know, I have an 8-year-old son now. My wife, it had been a very tough election the first time around. There were other candidates in that race. There were 6 of us when I ran against Jeanette, and others were very, very negative, attacking all the time. And we knew that we were going to subject ourselves to it. And I had stayed involved for 8 years. In 2019, a friend of mine and I started Gables Insider. Coral Gables did not have any publication covering it. Miami Lakes does. You have
the Miami Laker.
The Miami Laker does a great job of covering what happens here in the city. In Coral Gables, we relied on the Miami Herald occasionally, but they no longer had the funding to cover Coral Gables every commission meeting. So we started Gables Insider with the goal of informing residents. We started with a list of 250 emails from families and friends, and our lead story was that Cheesecake Factory was coming to Coral Gables. And by the end of that day, we had 2,000 subscribers. So July 1st of 2019, we launched Gables Insider, and we became the largest publication in the city, 38,000 subscribers in a city of 50,000 residents.
That's awesome.
And we became the voice of residents. So it was a natural synergy for me. I was covering every commission meeting, every single vote in the commission. Whenever the commission meeting was going on, Gables Insider was live posting every single discussion item, every single vote, so that residents knew exactly what was going on in their government. And it was a new level of transparency. And I thought it was important to bring that in-house, bring it into the government. So I filed August 22nd of 2022. And got blessed with the support of Coral Gables residents and got close to 59% of the vote on election day. And there was another seat that was also vacant. That one went to a runoff. I endorsed Commissioner Melissa Castro in that race. She had come in second in the general election, and she got a 60% of the vote in the runoff. So I didn't become one voice. We now had 2 voices on the commission, and we've started working together.
Well, but I think there's an interesting story, especially for kids, right? So a lot of people, I teach at the university, I teach political science and American government, and a lot of my kids are like, man, money runs politics, right? Money runs politics. Like, if you don't raise the most money, it's impossible to win. And I think part of the story of a lot of the kids that are going to be working on this video, people are going to be watching, is, how much money did you raise for that election compared to how much money was spent on the other side? Because I want folks to hear that so they can get inspired and run. Because a lot of people, I'm telling you, a lot of people don't want to run because they're like, well, who's going to give me money? Like, how am I going to, I'll probably be the best candidate, but how is it possible to win,
So I think the majority of the calls I received after my election was, what's the magic sauce? How'd you do it? Because my opponent had raised $372,000. I raised $35,000. And I'll be honest with you, 2 weeks before the election, I was trying to figure out how to use the money because I really didn't see a need for it. Elections are about hard work. Elections are about messaging and making sure that you're talking to the voters. Voters get to know you. Voters get to understand what you're about. They'll give you an opportunity. And that's what this is about. It's not about sending a bunch of mailers. The days of when mailers ran elections, those are over. You get so many mailers nowadays that you just toss them. I mean, most people aren't even opening letters these days. So that's no longer driving the equation. I also focus a lot on social media. Things have changed. The demographics in Coral Gables. Coral Gables was an older community when I first ran. The demographics of the city have probably changed the average age by 10 years in the last 8 years. And that's continuing to change. We have a lot of young families move in. A lot of the older folks are selling and moving up north or to different areas or downsizing. So it's about hard work. If you have an idea, if you have a vision, explain it to people. Tell people what your vision is, and they'll give you an opportunity. It's not about raising the money. You will need money.
But it goes back to where you were raised. Because you weren't afraid. You weren't afraid. Anybody else would have been afraid, right? Let's be real. Most people would have said, oh my God, they got every endorsement. They got every person. I'm not going to do it. But that's why I always tell folks, when you're born in a certain area, when you got to live a certain way, when nothing is given to you, when you got to earn everything, you lose that fear, right? You're hungry, right? You're like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, you know what I mean? I've seen it. I've been there. And it goes back to, I believe, that foundation of going to Champagnat Catholic, right? A working class. When people think of private schools, people think of, right, like the Belens, the Columbuses, Pace, American Heritage, like the elite schools. No, there was an era in Hialeah where you had working class private schools where people were the kids of the plumbers, the painters, the car salesmen, this, that, people work 2 jobs to have their kids there. And that ecosystem gave you, because I feel it, you know what I mean? Where you lose that first step where you said, hey, I'm going to run. Most people would have calculated it. Oh my God, the money, endorsements, there's no way that I'm going to do this. You were the other way around. You're like, no, I got no endorsements. I got no money, but I got a belief in myself. I got a belief I'm going to do right in my community. And I think, and obviously you won, but I think personally, a lot of that comes from that foundation that you learned in the working class hub that's Hialeah.
And I agree. I think that my youth prepared me for where I am today. I remember we would go to Disney World. Back then, going to Disney World was a cheap vacation. You'd buy a ticket to Disney for $20, and we would pack our sandwiches. We would call them squishies because by the time that it was lunchtime, they were so squashed in the backpack that they were squishies. But, we didn't have a whole lot of money. We'd spend 2 weeks at Fort Wilderness in the campground in a tent. We'd put an air conditioner on the tent. And we wouldn't go to the theme parks. We'd just spend the day at Fort Wilderness. But, it was like $30 a night, $40 a night.
We were those kids who couldn't buy the Mickey ice cream because it was
not.
whatever was in our parents' back. Same thing with the Apollo Theater on 49th Street, right? The dollar movies right down from your house.
Correct.
I'm sure you snuck in the little sodas, the little burger.
And that's where we would watch movies. We wouldn't watch the movies when they first came out. It was about 3 months later when they were at Apollo. And then I remember there was another one by where Miami-Dade College is today on 49th Street that had the summer matinees, which were also $1. And you would sign up for the program. I think it was $20 for the summer, and you would have a free movie every day.
They had Pippi Longstocking.
And all that stuff. Yes, that's what we grew up on.
I remember, yeah.
But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. I think society has put us in a place where you're watching the Kardashians, you're watching all these people who are making millions of dollars, and you think that that's what you have to be. Absolutely not. I wouldn't change anything of my youth. I grew up and I was on my bicycle every day with my friends in the backyard, playing basketball, baseball, whatever it was. The memories that we made, the memories we made with our parents, staying at a Motel 6 when we went on vacation because that's what we could afford. I didn't stay at the Ritz. And today I'm a commissioner in the city of Coral Gables, which has the highest valued zip code in the United States. It shows you that anybody can make it. Anybody can do something with their life. Anybody can change what happens in life. And that doesn't mean that I've changed the person who I am. This jacket that I'm wearing, I bought it at JCPenney on sale because I'm not going to pay for a high dollar suit. That's not what I'm about. It doesn't have to change you. It doesn't require being financially, rich or, having the best career. I do career days all the time and students are like, oh, I want to be a lawyer or a doctor because they make a lot of money. Sometimes those people are not happy. Sometimes being a teacher makes you happy because you're giving back to the community.
Look, it's talking about what makes you happy, going through that process. Growing up where you grew up, going to school, losing your first election, winning, having a 47% increase in your vote total, winning, not only winning, but governing. And now you're incredibly effective, right? Regardless of people didn't think you were going to win. Not only did you win, you've been.
It's funny you mentioned that because
but how does
I
that?
had a fundraiser where I had a person come up to me and they had been invited by somebody just to meet me. And they come up to me and they're like, what do you think you can change as just one person on the commission? And I thought that was probably the toughest question that I had gotten the entire election. But it was the one that made me analyze, it's not about being one person on the commission. It's about having the conversation and starting the conversation. And talking about governing. I was going to be one vote on the commission. Today, residents have a majority of the commission. Commissioner Fernandez has started working with us on the most controversial issues, and we're a 3-2 commission. And we are changing the dynamics of what's happening in Coral Gables just by voicing our opinions and people participating in the process. Residents started getting more involved because they felt like, hey, now I have somebody in the commission I identify with. And it's changed the dynamics of governing in Coral Gables, where sidewalks in Coral Gables have been a major issue for years. We have a large tree canopy, and it's been raising our sidewalks and damaging them. For years, the city was putting $500,000 towards sidewalk repairs. It had grown to over $9 million of sidewalks that needed to be repaired. Well, yesterday we approved the budget once again, and we've tripled the funding for sidewalk repairs. And we've started moving things around and addressing the needs that residents have had for years that have kind of just been kicked down the road. And it's something that we've been able to do, and it's small things that people really may not realize make a big impact, but they make a big impact.
All right, want to read out a couple of our sponsors and take a moment to thank them. We're powered by Miami Lakes Auto Mall. Thank you to Fred Senra. He gave the seed money to start this podcast. They're located at 16600 Northwest 57th Avenue, Miami Lakes. His phone number is 305-455-3510. He actually records a podcast here now. This has become the community podcast. There's about 5 different groups that record here.
That's great.
From the community, and we've turned that into that. You know, what do you think about the mural?
I was just looking at the mural.
Yeah.
I love the mural.
Yeah, that's.
I do mine just in my office with a white wall and a couple of flags. I'm gonna have to talk to your mural artist.
Grisel Gajano. She's a school counselor during the day. And an incredible artist in the afternoons and nights. She is awesome. Her phone number is 786-353-8608. Shout out to our film production team, Abetigo and the whole team, Matter Lakes Broadcasting. I know they're going to be working on that. And Enrique Santos, our friend, our brother, he donated the Roadcaster that helps us out. Actually, they use that now at the school too for like basketball games and everything. So you never know how far a donation goes into changing somebody's life and perspective. Thank you to all of our sponsors. So how does it feel? Because I'm sure you never had a chance, because you've been so busy, to sit back and say, man, I'm a commissioner in Coral Gables. I'm incredibly effective. But look back through your journey, because similar stories, right? Our families left a totalitarian regime in Cuba. It left everything behind so we can have a future, right? They got here. They worked hard, and then now their son, their grandson, their great-grandson is a commissioner in Coral Gables doing big things. I mean, how does that feel? Because I'm sure you've never thought about it, because the moment you got elected, you immediately pivoted to governing, right? But how does that feel? Because looking back at the journey, who would have thought that Ariel Fernandez, this kid that was born in Hialeah Hospital to a working class family, is today a commissioner in Coral Gables, but not only a commissioner, incredibly effective. How does that, from you, the journey, your family, understanding the sacrifices, how does that feel?
It's something that makes me emotional at times. My grandfather passed away 2 months ago, and I had the opportunity when he was sick at the hospital to sit down and talk about that and what it meant to him, and see how much he saw, and I'm gonna get emotional, the sacrifice he put in and what it means today. He's like, this is not something that I ever thought would happen. You know, they left Cuba with nothing, $11 in their pockets, and their grandson today is a commissioner in the city of Coral Gables. It's only in America. It's only in America. And that's the dream that they left Cuba with, that there would be opportunities. My grandfather has a huge American flag in front of their house. It's still there. he was prouder of that flag than anything. It's just hard to fathom, really. Hard to fathom. But I saw that hard work that I put in my election in the lives that they lived. You know, my grandfather drove a cement mixer. There's somebody who owned a sugar plantation in Cuba and, you know, didn't need to go to school. You know, everything was there for him. Had to leave Cuba with $11 in his pocket. Everything taken away from them. Come here, start driving cement mixers, driving trucks, working 3 jobs. My grandmother working in a factory, you know, putting together circuit boards. And their hard work paid off. Their hard work paid off. And the opportunities that you and I are giving to our kids, it's because of them.
100%.
Because of the sacrifice that they put in, and all of the parents and families of everybody who's watching this. You know, and it's about gratitude too. The first thing that I did after getting elected, printed out a picture of my swearing in, and I sent a note to my grandparents. This is because of you. It's hard, but we're here today because of them.
That's awesome, man. But that's I think, as the grandson and son of exiles, right? I think that story should be told, has to be told for that future generation.
It does.
Who might not, because they're going to have it easier, and they're going to have it easier the next generation because of, you're right, because of them. But it's
and some who are watching are immigrants themselves.
100%, our first generation.
And can understand the sacrifice that they've gone through to get to where they are today. And the groundwork that has been built by the prior generations will continue to make it easier for new generations of immigrants who come to our community to find a home and establish themselves here in South Florida. You go to South Florida and you read the books and the stories of South Florida 1958, 1959. It wasn't an open community. I mean, you see the pictures of the signs saying no Spanish, no Cubans, go back to Cuba. That's what a lot of our parents and grandparents came to here in the United States, the days of segregation. Today, it's a community where somebody gets to the United States and you have opportunities, jobs open to you right away, and things that are available to you. Doesn't make it any less harder. It's still hard, but you have opportunities today that you can take advantage of, and you should take advantage of. And you're an immigrant in this country, you become a U.S. citizen, you can run for office here in the United States today. And you can make a difference in your community. You can get involved in city boards. You can get involved in the community, civic organizations. But it's important that we all participate in the process. Because a lot of times, and it's unfortunate, we see the numbers of participation in elections by migrants to the United States who left countries where they didn't have the opportunity, and they're still not participating today. I think it's important that we continue to push, get involved, vote in the elections, and you don't realize, a lot of people say, oh, I vote for president. Well, the president has less of an impact in your daily life than members of your local council and commission.
Listen, call your president when you have a sidewalk issue.
Exactly.
Or a park issue or a police issue, and see if you get a hold of them.
Exactly.
So, we hand it over to you. You get to ask 2 questions of me, Albert, whatever. So you're the host for.
Wow, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
The toughest question is asking you questions.
Yeah, you're the host for 2, so we kind of like flip it around.
So I guess, who's our audience? And I guess, what message do we really want to make sure they understand?
Our audience is obviously a lot of Miami Lakes residents, a lot of residents in the area, but mainly young people, because how this was created was the principal of Matter Lakes, Rene Roy Rosa, who's a believer in making things happen, making things better. We approached him years ago with the idea. He was all about it. Today, he hired great folks like Albert and Lou Perez and Brent, who run an academy that they have 11 school periods where they teach broadcasting, but from all lengths, and it was inspired and started by the podcast. So they have over, how many students you got now? Like 300, 200? Yeah, 200 or 300 students. So they're the ones that are going to listen to it. They're going to watch it. They're going to break this apart. It's obviously going to be shared throughout the community. And the main message is, your why, and the main message is to inspire them. Because I think what happens, Ariel, is that a lot of these kids, especially in these schools, right, in our area, they believe that to get to positions of power, to get to be CEOs of large companies, to get to go to these high, that you got to be powerful and well connected, right? And I think the story that we like to share is to break that down and show them, hey, this is the playbook. You can do it. You know what I mean? You can be the next Ariel. You can be here's the play. This guy grew up in your same neighborhood. Now he's a commissioner in one of the wealthiest cities in the country, the wealthiest city in the country, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that is the main goal and purpose, is to kind of break it down for them. Tell them, look, the reality is there is some truth to it. There are people who have only gotten to where they've gotten because of, their family was powerful, their family was well, and it made it easier for them. That is a fact. But it doesn't take away that this country, there's still immense social, economic mobility and political mobility, where you can start from nothing and grow up the ranks. It's like you hit on the head. It's a harder path, but it's still doable, and you're an example of that.
And I think it's about setting goals. I was recently at a lecture that was done at the University of Miami by Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's a graduate of, I believe it's Miami Senior High. She also came from our community. Also, yep. She grew up at the University of Miami in university housing when she was a child, because her father was working at the university. Her father worked odd jobs at the university. Eventually, later in life, he became an attorney. But the one message that she sent was, set a goal and start working towards that goal. It's going to take hard work, and have a long-term goal, have a long-term vision of what you want to accomplish in life. And whenever those doors start opening, don't be afraid to open and walk through them. Don't be afraid to say, hey, this is an opportunity that I think I should take. And there's something you may not want to take. But make sure that your long-term goal is always that vision, and you continue to work towards it. There's no magic sauce. There's no equation that works for everybody. You got into office differently than I got into office, differently than everybody else in South Florida. Same with success in law, medicine, business. You watch Shark Tank, yep. And Shark Tank, all the sharks have had different ways of getting to where they are in their businesses. There's only one common denominator, and that's hard work. Yep. And that's it. Work hard to accomplish your goals, set goals for yourself, and you can accomplish anything you set your mind to.
Very true. Very true. You got one more if you want to ask. Now we'll.
All right. So for you, what was that path growing up in this area to getting to where you have in life?
Well, you touched upon something very important, right? Pitbull talked about it one time. He said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. So in 2003, I was 18 years old. I was 19 years old. And there was an election in the city of Hialeah. And I was at Miami-Dade College, and I was learning poli-sci. I was in a bunch of poli-sci classes. Shout out to Anna Ward and Eloy Velasquez. Eloy Velasquez is still a resident of our town. I think Anna still lives in El Portal. I believe she was still the chair of the CITT, but they were professors of mine. And one of the things was, hey, if you love political science, go campaign. I literally was campaigning for people who I didn't even know in an election in Hialeah, holding up signs. One of them ended up being my boss about 4 years later in the state legislature, by the way. I had no idea. And I just stood there every day with a sign on 49th Street, election day, passing out cards, knocking on doors, and no pay. I didn't ask for a pen. I didn't even get a patelito, no pay, because I was like, wow, this is a great opportunity. 2 years later, I was still, at that point, I was at FIU. I interviewed for an aide position in the state legislature. And I kept volunteering in all these local campaigns and just learning. And I go interview, and I'll never forget the guy, one of the folks, and I still know the folks who had interviewed me. They were like, oh, what do you want to be in the future? oh, I want to be the mayor of Hialeah. Said that in the interview. I ended up getting hired because they were like, this guy has the audacity of saying that at 20 years old, 21 years old, like he's incredibly hungry. He's going to work hard. And they gave me, I got a call a month later, gave me the opportunity. I ended up dropping my classes at FIU and I went to Tallahassee to go work. But it was walking through that door. Imagine if I would have said no. Yeah. No. I'll hold off because I want to finish another year and a half of school. I ended up getting my degree years later. When my dad got into hospice, I made him the promise. I was able to do that, which was powerful. But which was one of the promises that I made to him. I'll do it before. And he was able to see me get my AA because I needed 2 classes in my BA. I needed 4 classes before he passed. We actually did the ceremonies in the hospice room with the president of the North Campus, Furman, and President Armstrong from St. Thomas. But that journey was walking through that door, and it was just because I worked hard and I had and years later I became the mayor of Miami Lakes. Who would have thought, just by having the audacity of, just believing in what I believed in, so
that's something else we have in common, because I walked through one of those doors. I ended up finishing it.
That's awesome.
But it was those doors that I did also along the way that also paved the path for me to learn about government and really appreciate it.
That is awesome. God bless. That's it's an incredible story, right? Mm-hmm. So, and Ariel, now in closing, if you could look at Commissioner, if you can look at that middle camera, just share words of inspiration, motivation to that next Ariel Fernandez, that kid who's growing up, who's like, oh man, it's gonna be difficult to make it there. Like, how do you inspire that next Ariel Fernandez?
Don't let anybody ever tell you can't accomplish something. Anything you set your mind to doing, you're gonna be able to accomplish it. It may take time. It may not happen today. It may be 8 years after you try your first time. And never be afraid of failure. Every single success there has been in life, in the world's history, has come with numerous failures along the way. And those things start setting up as roadblocks, but also setting up as steps that get you to accomplish your ultimate dreams. If you're thinking about a career path that you're interested in, take advantage of internship opportunities. Try to figure it out. I was somebody who was going to study meteorology, and I did an internship with John Morales when he was at Channel 23. Decided that wasn't the path for me. I did an internship with Congresswoman Ross Layton, and I figured I want to help people. This is an opportunity that I have, and that's what I did. Take whatever opportunities are set before you. If you ever want to reach out to me, my number is 305-772-8956. Feel free to give me a call. More than happy to have a conversation. If there's anything I can ever do to help, even if it's just inspire you to take the next step in life.
And there you have it. Commissioner Ariel Fernandez from the city of Coral Gables. The journey's real. The journey's incredibly inspiring. So make sure you tune in next Wednesday on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and X.